Hi, my name is Ivani Valdivia, and I am going to be talking today about Russia and the United States. I'm going to be comparing and contrasting the political systems between both countries. To start off, I want to talk about United States first. I do want to give a little bit of a background. So, in 1783, after the American Revolution ended, the founding fathers wanted to establish a new government. They knew that the monarchy was not working. They didn't want to establish a king, so they decided to do a strong government. They wanted to basically focus on it for it to be a strong and fair government that would protect all of the freedoms for the people, and they also wanted to ensure that the power would not be abused by this government. So in 1787 there was a new constitution, and this constitution basically they established three separate branches. So each branch has its own particular specific power, and they also wanted to make a system of checks and balances in order to ensure that no branch would overturn or be more powerful than the other. So the three branches of government that were established, it's going to be the first branch, which is the legislative branch. This branch is basically Congress. So within Congress, there are 100 U.S. senators and 435 representatives. The legislative branch does make laws. They approve also federal judges and justices, as well as they pass the national budget, and they have the power to declare war. As for the executive branch, this has the president and the vice president. They have a cabinet that helps them basically help them with their branch. They're like their assistants. The cabinet helps with defense, treasury, homeland security, and they are also in charge of commanding the armed forces, as well as they can appoint government officials. So under the executive branch, there are 4 million employees. For the judicial branch, the judicial branch is in charge of all the courts within the country. There is a federal district court and the U.S. Supreme Court. So basically, they are the interpreters of the law. Within the Supreme Court, there are 9 justices. So once these justices are elected to be in the Supreme Court, they are elected for life until they choose to stop being part of the Supreme Court, or until they pass away. Now, with voting and how we get elected our president and vice president, we have to go and figure out that there are basically a two-party system. So within this two-party system, there is the Democratic Party. They are basically liberal. They're a little bit more progressive versus the Republican Party, which is more conservative, and they have very conservative views. There are third-party system. Not a third-party system, but there is like a third party. It's going to be part of the Libertarian Party, the Green Party, and the Constitution Party. Now, there are other parties included in the third party, but usually when voting and in the primaries, we're only going to be talking about Democratic Party and the Republican Party. So basically I see a typo, parties. But the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, they're going to be in the election. There's going to be candidates for each party. We're only going to be mostly voting for someone to be president from the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. There has not yet been a president that has been from a third party, which would be the Libertarian, Green Party, or Constitution Party. Now, in order to vote and elect the president, there is the Electoral College. Now, the Electoral College is elected by the state legislature. So for this, the Electoral College Basically, there is a certain number of votes that come from each state, and in order to get those votes, people from every state has to go and vote. Now, the majority of the votes for a certain state, which it can be either Democratic or the Republican candidate, they will get those electoral votes, and then they would add the votes of the whole entire states, which would be the 50 states, and then from there the majority would win the presidency. Now with Russia in their early years, they had a Tsar. It was Nicholas II. He was the primary. He ran the country at that time, but he was overthrown by Vladimir Lenin. He overthrew Nicholas II due to the Bolshevik Revolution in trying to overthrow the Tsar, and they wanted to basically make Russia into a communist party. Now, this did not last very long. And in 1991, there was a new type of election, and new reforms were brought in. Basically, they fell apart, and then in 1991 there was a new party, which would be the Russian Federation that was formed. Now, Boris Yeltsin, he became the first president of Russia, and he tried to change Russia and to be kind of a more Western style democracy, with having a president and also building their own constitution. So that was mostly based on a Western style type of government. So by 1993, there was a new constitution. So in this constitution for Russia, there was 3 branches of government, which can be similar to the United States. But they had the president, a prime minister, and the Duma and the Constitution Council. So basically, once this was established in 1999, we did have a new president come in place, what would be Vladimir Putin, and he is a member of the United Russia and was elected into the office. There are few political parties that exist in Russia, but for the most part, we're going to be talking about the United Russia. They are the most predominant party within Russia right now. So for the 3 branches of government, the president, he's obviously going to be the main leader, but the prime minister, he basically is going to he's going to take the position of the president. If they were to pass away, the prime minister would overtake his spot. So in elections for Russia, they do want to do kind of a checks and balances, but the thing is, in Russia, there actually is a checks of imbalances. Basically, Vladimir Putin, he established the 6-year election time period. So a president will be elected for 6 years. Before, it was only 4 years, since they tried to model after the United States. But Putin decided to be like, no, that's not enough. So we're going to do 6 years instead. As well, the voting is basically called the referendum. So with this, basically, they're going to establish what needs to be voted by citizens, and from there it's just a single political general vote, and then from there they get to decide on matters, or who gets to win the election. So for the Duma elections, they happen every 5 years, and there are 450 seats. And so for these seats, there's only a certain amount of people that can run. But in order for legislation to take place, both the Federation Council and the President must approve. As mentioned before in the presidential election, it's going to happen every 6 years. I do want to add that basically the president, he's going to be the head of state, and he is going to be the head of the executive branch. He is basically going to be the most powerful person, which would be Putin. He is the most powerful person right now in Russia. And he even gets to appoint his own prime minister, and he gets to appoint the Federation Council representatives, which is something that Putin created. He created the Federation Council representatives. There is also a Russian cabinet, And it's going to have the prime minister, deputy ministers, and federal ministers. They basically all report to the prime minister, and these ministers are head of large entities in Russia, and they basically work very close to the president and the prime minister. So as mentioned, the federal council, it's going to be the second house from the Duma. So basically what the federal council, which is created by Putin, this council is supposed to represent every region, and Putin created this to be more powerful than the Duma. They are able to reject legislation and is involved in policy making in regards to the military, impeachment, and judicial decisions. As mentioned before, there is a great imbalance between each branch, and basically this was formed so Putin is overall the most important person within the Russian government. So basically they have a checks and unbalance. So that's what makes Russia and the United States a little bit different. It's just that Putin, he made it so he has power over everybody else, and this is definitely not balanced power. So those are the differences between the USA and Russia. They are very different. United States, the big one is going to be they have a big sense of checks and balances. They want to make sure that every branch is equal to the other. But in Russia, it was formed to kind of have a little bit more dominance with the president. So they're going to be the most powerful person in Russia. I do want to thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great one.